My wife's brother matched my wedding tux, then I caught him cheating in public. And discovered my wife was covering for him. I'm a 42-year-old construction manager, and I've been married to my wife Rachel for 4 years now. Rachel comes from what folks around here like to call the perfect family. Her parents have been together for over 45 years, and they still hold hands when they take a walk through town. It's the kind of marriage people envy. She's got 2 brothers, and you couldn't find 2 more different people. Her older brother, Marcus, is 44 and works as a high school football coach. He's been married to Olivia, who's 40, for over a decade. They've got 3 daughters ages 10, 8, and 6, and Marcus is what most would call a picture-perfect family man. He coaches his girls' soccer teams on the weekends, takes them camping every summer, and always shows up early to set up chairs at school fundraisers. He's that guy, the reliable, wholesome dad who's always present. Then there's the younger brother, Ethan. He's 35, a freelance photographer who spends most of his time chasing wildlife across the globe for nature magazines. He's got long hair, wears worn boots, and tells stories about sleeping under the stars in the Andes or hiking through rainforests barefoot. He just got engaged to a botanist named Lucia, who he met on assignment in Costa Rica. Ethan's always been the family's free spirit. When I first started dating Rachel, this was about 6 years ago, I noticed something odd about how her family operated. On our 3rd date, I took her to this local brewery I had just discovered. We were sampling different craft beers, enjoying the evening, when I noticed a man in a baseball cap and dark sunglasses sitting alone in the corner, sneaking glances in our direction. I leaned in and told Rachel I thought we might have someone watching us. She squinted, trying to see who I meant, then suddenly burst out laughing. Without missing a beat, she waved at the guy, who instantly ducked behind a menu. I stared, completely confused. Rachel brushed it off, telling me not to worry. We went on with the date, but that weird moment stuck with me. It wasn't until months later, when I officially met her brother Marcus, that it hit me he was the guy from the brewery. Turns out, in their family, it's totally normal for the siblings to check out each other's dates before any introductions happen. Apparently, stealth surveillance was part of the process. That moment gave me my first real look into just how unusually close these 3 siblings were. Rachel, Marcus, and Ethan weren't just tight-knit, they were practically enmeshed. They shared everything. I mean everything. Daily phone calls, group chats that buzzed around the clock, and weekly family dinners that were practically sacred. They knew each other's PIN codes, medical records, even relationship drama, often before the significant others involved did. At first, I actually found it kind of sweet. My own family was a mess. My parents divorced when I was 7, and I barely speak to my step-siblings. So this level of connection was foreign to me, but also a little enviable. It felt like Rachel had something I never did. But as our relationship grew more serious, that initial charm wore off. I started noticing Rachel would vent about our arguments to her brothers while we were still in the middle of them. Once, after a minor health diagnosis, I hadn't even processed the news yet before Marcus called me with unsolicited advice. I hadn't even told my own dad. I tried talking to Rachel about it a few times, but she always brushed me off. She told me I just didn't get it because I'd never experienced what a real sibling bond was like. And maybe she was right. My own brother didn't even RSVP to our wedding, so I let it go. I figured this was just part of loving Rachel, her family came with the package. When it came time to plan our wedding, I expected the usual couple arguments about seating charts and floral arrangements. But to my surprise, we were totally in sync. We both wanted a medium-sized event at a vineyard just outside town, agreed on a budget, even liked the same rustic decor. It felt like real teamwork, like we were building something together. The day finally arrived, and everything was going smoothly, until Marcus showed up in a tuxedo that was identical to mine. Not similar, identical. Same designer, same cut, even the same boutonniere. When I first saw him at the venue, I genuinely thought it was a prank. But Rachel lit up when she saw us side by side. And then, right in the middle of her vows, she went off script to thank Marcus. She said he had always been the role model for what kind of husband she wanted, and that it was only fitting that the 2 most important men in her life were dressed like twins that day. I stood there, at my own wedding, listening to my wife talk about another man with tears in her eyes. I wasn't the only one uncomfortable. The guests shifted in their chairs. Olivia, Marcus's wife, just stared ahead with this frozen smile. Even Rachel's parents looked uneasy. Later at the reception, I pulled Rachel aside and asked why she didn't tell me about the matching tuxedos. She seemed genuinely puzzled, like she thought it was this beautiful surprise. When I told her I felt like I'd been upstaged at my own wedding, she said I was being dramatic. She called it a family tradition, something I couldn't possibly understand. And that tuxedo thing? It followed us into the honeymoon. We argued about it almost daily. I tried to explain how boundaries matter, especially in a marriage, but Rachel just didn't get it. Eventually, she admitted that Marcus had always dreamed of a proper wedding. When he married Olivia, they had to elope because she was pregnant, and they couldn't afford a big ceremony. So Rachel decided to let Marcus share our wedding day, thinking it would be a sweet gesture to make up for what he missed. She couldn't understand why it bothered me. In her mind, it didn't take anything away from what we had. After we got back, Ethan reached out to me. He apologized for his sister's behavior and said, honestly, he knew the whole sibling dynamic could get intense. Olivia also texted me, saying we should grab coffee sometime and swap notes on marrying into the family. Those gestures really meant something to me. It helped me believe I could still make this work. And for a while, things did get better. Rachel tried to respect boundaries. We made a rule, no family calls after 8 p.m., and weekends were ours unless it was an emergency. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like progress. Still, I never really got over what Marcus did on our wedding day. And as I watched how he treated Olivia at family events, cutting her off mid-sentence, ignoring her suggestions, always siding with Rachel, I started to see a pattern. Olivia seemed to have accepted her place in the pecking order, but I noticed how she'd drift away during dinners, staring at her phone or disappearing into the kitchen. Then, about 3 months ago, something happened. I took a half day off work to meet up with some old college friends who were passing through. We picked this quiet coffee shop about 30 miles from Marcus and Olivia's place out of the way in low-key. As we were catching up over espresso, I spotted Marcus walk in with a woman who definitely wasn't Olivia. I quickly turned away, not wanting him to notice me. I was trying to enjoy time with my friends, not get pulled into family drama. He didn't see me. He and the woman sat in a booth across the cafe, leaning in close, talking like they were the only two people in the world. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I didn't need to. The way they looked at each other said more than words ever could. She kept touching his arm while they talked, and he leaned in close every time she said something. At one point, they even shared food off the same plate. I tried to convince myself there had to be an innocent explanation, maybe she was a coworker, a long-lost friend, or even a cousin I hadn't met yet. But then they got up to leave, and I saw Marcus slide his hand onto her lower back, then down. Right there, through the coffee shop window, I watched him grab her ass as they walked out. What hit even harder was what happened next. Just before they got into their separate cars, they kissed. Not a polite peck, this was slow and familiar. I sat there frozen, watching from the inside like some helpless extra in a drama I didn't ask to be part of. My friends noticed something was off. They asked if I was okay, but I just mumbled something about forgetting a work deadline and needing to take care of it. When they left, I didn't go anywhere. I just sat in my car in the parking lot, hands clenched around the steering wheel, trying to wrap my head around what I'd just seen. Marcus, the guy everyone holds up as the gold standard of a devoted husband and dad, was cheating. I didn't want to believe it, but the image was burned into my mind. So I made a split-second decision. I followed the woman's car. She drove about 15 minutes to a modest-looking apartment complex on the edge of town. I pulled over far enough not to be noticed, jotted down the address, and got her license plate number. I had no idea what I was going to do with the information, but I couldn't let it go. Over the next few days, I started digging. Her name, at least the one she used, was Danielle. She was 38, worked as a physical therapist, and had met Marcus when he injured his shoulder last year coaching. It didn't take much to connect the dots. Through her social media and a few receipts I found in public posts, I figured out they'd been seeing each other for at least 6 months, always meeting up on Tuesdays and Thursdays. My first instinct was to tell Rachel. But with how close she is to her brothers, I didn't know how she'd react. Would she even believe me? Or would she turn it around and accuse me of trying to tear her family apart? So instead, I came up with a plan. I knew Marcus and Danielle met at the same coffee shop twice a week, those same Tuesdays and Thursdays when Olivia took their daughters to gymnastics and dance classes. I started visiting that cafe casually, left big tips, and eventually befriended a barista named Kyle. After a few weeks of chit-chat and generous tipping, I told him I needed his help. I didn't sugarcoat it, I said I wanted to catch someone cheating and that I'd make it worth his while. Kyle was on board. He helped me set up a fake customer appreciation day for a Thursday afternoon, complete with prizes and a trivia game. I made sure Marcus and Danielle would be there. Then I invited the whole family, making it sound like a surprise announcement event I wanted to share with everyone. Rachel was hesitant, but I played up the mystery enough to get her interested. Olivia said yes immediately, her daughter's classes were cancelled that day, anyway. Rachel's parents and Ethan with his fiancée Lucia all agreed to come too. Marcus was the only one who said no. He claimed he had work. I pretended to be disappointed but assured him I understood. When Thursday rolled around, I gathered the family, minus Marcus, of course, and drove them over to the coffee shop. Rachel was tense the entire ride. She kept looking at her phone, biting her lip, her knuckles white around the edges of her phone case. I asked if something was bothering her, and she quickly said no. We got there just as Kyle was kicking off the Cup Challenge trivia game. He made sure Marcus and Danielle were selected to participate. They were laughing, answering questions about each other, completely unaware of the audience walking through the door behind them. The final question was, "How long have you known each other?" Danielle answered with a smile, "Since last April, he came in for physical therapy on his shoulder." Kyle smiled and presented them with the grand prize, a gift basket and a framed photo he had secretly snapped during one of their earlier visits. The caption read, "Tuesday through Thursday couple of the month." Olivia stopped cold in the doorway. Rachel's parents turned their heads, first toward Marcus, then to Olivia, back and forth like they were watching a slow-motion car crash. Ethan muttered something under his breath that definitely wasn't family-friendly. Lucia gripped his hand tighter. Marcus saw us then. He locked eyes with our group, and the color drained from his face like someone had flipped a switch. Danielle still hadn't realized what was going on. She accepted the basket, smiling proudly until she noticed everyone staring at her like a scene from a nightmare. Olivia turned and walked out without saying a word. Marcus chased after her, leaving Danielle standing there, basket in hand, blinking like she just stepped into the wrong movie. Rachel's parents followed Olivia outside. Rachel stood rooted in place, just staring at Danielle with an expression I couldn't read. I stepped outside to see what was happening. Marcus was trying to talk to Olivia near her car. She kept shaking her head and backing away. Rachel's father stood between them, one hand firmly pressed against Marcus's chest, not letting him get any closer. Rachel's mom had her arm around Olivia, shielding her like a mother bear. When I came back inside, Rachel and Ethan were arguing quietly. Their faces were tight, their voices low. As soon as they saw me, they stopped. Danielle had disappeared. No one saw her leave. The drive home was silent. But as soon as we walked through the front door, Rachel exploded. She accused me of humiliating her family, of staging a public ambush. I asked her why she was more upset about Marcus being embarrassed than about Olivia being betrayed. She didn't answer. When I asked if she had known about the affair, her silence said everything. I packed a bag and checked into a hotel that night. Rachel called over and over, but I let it go to voicemail. Ethan texted me later asking to meet for a drink. We sat at a bar near my hotel, and he confirmed what I already suspected Rachel had known for months. Marcus had convinced her that his marriage to Olivia was already over, that they were only staying together for the kids, and that Olivia was totally fine with it. Ethan never bought it, but Rachel did. She chose to believe Marcus. Ethan said he'd begged both of them to stop, told them it would blow up eventually. But Marcus and Rachel had always been a team. He said he never stood a chance once the two of them were aligned. I stayed away for 3 days. When I finally came home, Rachel wanted to talk. I expected more excuses. But instead, she asked if Marcus could move in with us. I actually laughed. It was so absurd that I couldn't help it. The idea that after everything, she wanted the guy who helped wreck our marriage to live under our roof, it was unbelievable. Rachel looked hurt by my reaction, which only made me laugh harder. When I finally stopped, I asked her if she was serious. Did she really think I'd be okay letting her cheating brother, the same man who blew up his own family and helped damage ours, move into our house? Rachel didn't get why I was so bothered. In her mind, Marcus was still family. And to her, that made it all okay. Rachel kept insisting that family sticks together no matter what. But I pointed out the obvious: Marcus hadn't stuck by Olivia. And Rachel? She hadn't stood by me either. Not when she kept her brother's secret and let me walk around clueless. That's when things got heated. Rachel told me Marcus had confided in her, claiming Olivia was emotionally abusive and cold. That he had been pushed away, left feeling alone, and Danielle had simply been a comforting presence who truly understood him. He painted the whole affair as something born from emotional neglect, not selfishness. I told Rachel I'd only even consider letting Marcus stay with us if he was willing to say those exact things to Olivia's face, in front of the entire family. If he truly believed Olivia was abusive, then he needed to bring that out into the open so everyone could deal with it honestly and support him if needed. Rachel jumped at the condition. Without hesitation, she called Marcus and set up a meeting. Olivia agreed to come, and she brought her parents for support. We planned to meet the next evening at Ethan and Lucia's house. When the time came, everyone gathered in Ethan's living room. Olivia sat calmly on one end of the couch. Marcus slouched in a chair across from her, barely able to meet her eyes. Rachel's parents stood behind him like a protective barrier. Ethan and Lucia served drinks but didn't leave, they stayed quietly observing. Rachel kept glancing my way, nervous. I broke the silence. I explained why we were all there, that Marcus had accused Olivia of emotional abuse, and he'd used that to justify his affair with Danielle. I then turned the floor over to Marcus, inviting him to speak directly to Olivia and share those accusations with her. Marcus shifted in his seat, squirming like he couldn't get comfortable. He muttered something vague about feeling unsupported and misunderstood. Olivia didn't interrupt, she just stared at him, waiting. When we asked him to give examples, specific ones, he started getting defensive. His words got slippery. Finally, he sighed and admitted it, Olivia hadn't been abusive. He had just felt neglected. She was busy with the kids. That's all it was. Rachel looked like someone had pulled the rug out from under her. Olivia finally spoke. Her voice was steady, but every word cut clean. She listed all the ways she had supported Marcus, how she carried most of the child-rearing, kept their household running, worked part-time to help with finances, and put her own ambitions on hold so he could chase his coaching dreams. She spoke about how Marcus would disappear without explanation, lie about where he was, and manipulate her with vague excuses. How he prioritized his siblings over his wife and kids, every single time. By the time she finished, the air in the room was thick with silence. Rachel's parents turned to Olivia and apologized. Ethan looked like he'd finally been proven right after years of trying to speak up. Marcus got up and left without a word, ignoring Rachel when she offered for him to come stay with us. He couldn't even look at any of us. Rachel cried that night. 4 hours. She had built her entire sense of self around this idea of being part of a perfect, loyal family. But now she had to face the truth, her brother wasn't the man she believed he was. And their family wasn't the fairy tale she had always clung to. Update 1. About a month later, Marcus found a small apartment across town. He told everyone he'd started therapy, supposedly to work on himself before trying to reconnect with Olivia. Meanwhile, Rachel and I began couples counseling. We were trying to rebuild trust, figure out boundaries, and untangle the mess her family dynamics had caused in our relationship. Olivia filed for divorce. She asked for primary custody of their daughters but was generous with visitation. She wanted Marcus to remain in their lives. Despite everything, she prioritized their emotional well-being. Even when her parents made cutting remarks about Marcus, she shut it down in front of the kids. Rachel's parents struggled. They had always put Marcus on a pedestal, and now they were being forced to see the part they'd played in propping him up. They started going to family therapy with Ethan and Rachel, but not Marcus. He wasn't invited. As for Ethan and Lucia, they continued with their wedding plans. But instead of the big family celebration they'd originally wanted, they scaled it way down. Just a small destination wedding with a handful of friends. The drama had cast a shadow they couldn't ignore. The biggest change, though, was in Rachel. She started individual therapy alongside our marriage sessions. And through that process, she began to recognize how deeply her family's closeness had shaped her ideas about loyalty and love. She admitted to me that her default had always been to prioritize her brother's needs even over mine because that's what she had been taught. That's what her family modeled. One evening, she showed me her phone. Dozens of missed calls from Marcus. She had stopped answering them. She was setting boundaries for the first time in her life. When Marcus showed up unannounced, she told him through the door that he needed to call ahead from now on. When he called during our dinners or therapy nights, she sent him a polite message saying she'd call back another time. And sometimes, she didn't call back at all. She suggested he take those problems to his therapist. It wasn't easy. Rachel wrestled with guilt and slipped back into old habits now and then. Marcus, for his part, alternated between accepting her boundaries and guilting her about abandoning him in his time of need. During this stretch, I kept my distance. I saw him at the occasional family function, but we never exchanged more than a few awkward hellos. He never apologized. Not for the tuxedo at our wedding. Not for dragging Rachel into his affair. Nothing. Then, something unexpected happened. Olivia reached out. She invited me for coffee. We met at a different place this time, not the one where everything had unraveled. We talked quietly. She thanked me for exposing the truth. Said it was painful, yes, but necessary. That without it, she might still be lying to herself about her marriage. She told me she had returned to work full-time and was looking into finishing the master's degree she had abandoned when she got pregnant with their first daughter. She was reclaiming her life. When our cups were empty, she glanced at her watch and said she had to pick up the girls from dance. We walked to the parking lot, and before getting into her car, she paused. No hard feelings, she said. What you did, took guts. She reached out her hand. I shook it. And I stood there for a moment, watching her drive away, feeling the weight of how differently things had turned out than I ever expected. So that's where I'm at now. Rachel and I are still a work in progress. But we're really trying to build something better than before. Something more honest. More grounded. Less tangled up in other people's expectations. Sometimes, it takes a family falling apart to finally see what was broken all along.